It has been 274 days since Donald Trump beat Kamala Harris to win back the White House, 197 days since Donald Trump took the oath of office for the second time and began thoroughly dominating our politics. In that time, it's been fascinating to see how Kamala Harris has gone forward. Their path have diverged, Trump and Harris, to say the least. Donald Trump's never running for president again. He sort of reaffirms that whenever he's asked. Kamala Harris might. But for the last 274 days, both Trump and Harris have really operated true to form. Both of them have played to type. Trump has been in the spotlight almost every day, even during the transition. And he's kind of reflected and represented where he has taken his party, the country, and the world. On the other hand, Kamala Harris has barely and rarely been on the stage, but is also very much representing herself and her connection to the Democratic Party. Trump is in the arena. He's being bold and strong. Occasionally, he's been reckless and sometimes duplicitous, sometimes ridiculous. Honest Republicans will acknowledge that. But he is largely making his base happy. Sometimes he's confusing them. Sometimes he's freaking them out. He's regularly freaking out Blue America. And despite what the New York Times will tell you, he's not destroying the country. He is radically changing it. On the other hand, what has Kamala Harris been doing? She's been dithering. There's no two ways about it. As she's tried to decide through numerous conversations, what's her theory of the case for what she wants to do next? What major job will she seek? She's now ruled out governor. President apparently is still in the possible realm. As always, though, her public conduct reflects her private torture. I have said this about her before. It's the key to understanding her as a public official. She does not like to make difficult decisions under pressure. And trying to decide what to do next is a lot of pressure. She does not want to miss the moment. She does not want to make a mistake. And in doing that, she has tied herself in knots. And some of her friends, some of her advisors, some of her boosters feel maybe she is missing the moment. What has she been doing? She has been doing mostly B-list events, not major events, barely dipping her toes into anything that represents either a long-term commitment or decisively weighing in at some sort of culturally relevant time. There are dumb Democrats, as I said, some voters, even the media, even some Republicans who say, look, she's young, leave her a wide berth to decide what she wants to do next, maybe grow into another role. She does not have only 107 days now, the time she ran for president last time. She's got years to decide if she ever wants to be president and do what is required to reach that brass ring. She's young by political standards. She's nowhere near the age of our last two presidents. But if you look at everything she's done since she lost the election to Donald Trump, I don't think you could say anything, with the exception of turning down running for governor, has been a decisive step in any direction, defining herself, defining her party. It's not just the personalities of Trump and Harris, though, that have been on vivid display. It's also their work styles. You know, he plays a lot of golf, sure, and he's on social media, goofs around, certainly watches a lot of TV. But he has worked very hard in this second term, round the clock, 7 days a week, using all his energy, all his resources to try to be a better president than he was last time. For all his bravado about how everything he does is great, he has worked really hard, hiring good people, doing what he thinks is necessary to be considered a great president. We'll see how he does. What has Kamala Harris done during this same period of time? She's done a bunch of really fun stuff, some social stuff. She's traveled. She's clearly better rested. She looks great by the measurements of most folks. She's approaching, though, all the few public tasks she's done with, I would say, about 1/10 of the energy required to do a great job. And she's on a high plane now, right? She's got to do a great job if she wants to succeed. She was the vice president of the United States. She was the candidate for the party. You think back to the Chicago convention a year ago, and she showed a lot of people who were looking at her performance in Chicago a ton of potential. There was charm, elegance, excitement, inspiring so many people around the country, not just into the Chicago Convention Hall. And yet she was unable to sustain it. You still hear people privately say what is apparent to anybody with eyes and ears. She did not run a good campaign. We all know that what was a fast start, aided and abetted by the media, was not sustained. And we've seen her over the last year or so challenge repeatedly. And the question now that people have is, has she come through this process stronger? If she wants to run for president this time or any day down the road, is she doing the things to take advantage of the moment to get herself ready? That is what people are wondering about Kamala Harris right now. If you think about how she's conducted herself, what she's done, she says she's taking a break now because the system is broken. Okay? The system is broken. Donald Trump has built his entire political career for the last decade over that exact same argument. Trump said in 2015, he says it now, even though he's president, the system is broken. And while people who don't like Donald Trump will say Trump's actually the one breaking the system, his supporters would tell you he is smashing the system, but he's doing it in order to restore it, to build something bigger. So again, what has Kamala Harris done with her time? She's taken in some Broadway shows. You can see that on Instagram. She met with relief workers in the aftermath of the California fires. She signed with CAA, the Hollywood Talent Agency, to represent her. She's gone to a couple of awards dinners and a few political dinners. She went to the Met Gala, fancy dinner in New York. She spoke at a high school graduation. And of course, she did her interview with Stephen Colbert, her first interview since losing the election. She also sends out fundraising emails to maintain that big list she has. That is not a lot if you think about all the time has passed. And if you think about the image that's been left by all those things, it's nothing. It's a sparrow's toe print in the snow. She has stayed away from interviews. She's stayed away largely from the big public debates that have raged during the Trump term. Vaguely, she's been involved, but not in any specifics. And of course, she stayed entirely from the debate about Joe Biden's cognitive decline and what she and others did and knew and said about it. That is not a fake issue. That is an issue that matters for the credibility of the Democratic Party. We've talked about that a lot here. I do not hear a big clamor from donors and strategists and elected officials that I talk to that say, of course, we want her to run. Of course, she's ahead in the polls. Of course, she's our leader. Not a lot of disappointment that she didn't run for governor. Now, I will tell you, I said during the Biden administration that Republicans who said Donald Trump or that Joe Biden had completely lost his cognitive abilities were wrong. They were overstating the case. And I will tell you that, and I said at the time that Democrats who were saying there's nothing wrong were understating the case. Same is true of Kamala Harris and her political abilities, her intelligence, her goodness as a person. I got to know her a little bit before she was vice president, before she was a senator. And I will tell you that she is not stupid. And I hate to have to even say it, but I confront it all the time. She is not great in public. As Bill Clinton said about Mitt Romney during Mitt Romney's presidential campaign, he's a very nice man. It's unfortunate that he has a job that involves speaking in public. It's the same with the Vice President Harris. If you have a private conversation with her, you will find she is knowing, she is smart, she understands how people see her. I don't blame you for not agreeing with me. I'm sure some of you are pulling your hair out as you hear me say it, but you got to trust me because I have had private conversations with her. She is like Hillary Clinton, like John Kerry, like Mitt Romney, like a lot of people Al Gore, who for whatever reason cannot take their private behavior and translate it into the public realm. And of course, again, if your job is talking in the public realm, that's a big problem. And you couple that with the reality that she does not like to make difficult decisions under pressure. It's a recipe for just not being where she needs to be. So now we see, because of the passage of time, this is true of all humans, both Trump and Harris are moving forward, but they're moving forward in very different ways. Donald Trump is buffeted by his own bluster, by the enormity of the job he's in, but he's getting a lot done every day, agree with him or disagree with him. Kamala Harris, though, has largely shrunk back, not taking advantage of the public platform she could have, because I don't think she knows what she wants, and I don't think she knows how to express it. Her critics say that really what she wants is what they say, a lot of Republicans say the Obamas want. She just wants to get rich and be celebrated, have fun, not doing anything that's stressful or complicated, getting accolades because she's been the vice president of the United States. If you think about her performance as vice president, it's very difficult to unpack. You've probably read very little about what Kamala Harris did as vice president, How much can you say she did? We know that she was given, for instance, assignments to deal with the root causes of the challenge of the southern border. We know that she spoke out on things like voting rights. But really, you can't say what she did as vice president. You can't say, because it hasn't been reported, you can't say if she was a successful vice president or not. Now, here's what I can tell you. I reported last week that the folks in the Biden administration, including the president himself, were very protective of her, did their best to make her a success, did their best to make her ready to be president, either if Joe Biden left office prematurely or if she decided she wanted to run. If you look at her public schedule, you'll see she had, I think, an unprecedented number of meetings with world leaders. Certainly, every opportunity, whether they were in Washington or when she traveled overseas, she met a lot of world leaders. They tried to get her up to speed, but she was not quite ready for prime time. Let me put it that way. The parallels between Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and John McCain and Sarah Palin, I think, are instructive here. John McCain chose Sarah Palin. It was a high risk, high reward mode. He thought she would help him win the White House. And then he's no fool. He saw that she had real deficiencies. The assumption of his team and of Senator McCain was that someone who was a governor of the state knew basic things, and turned out not to be true. But to the end of his life, John McCain would not say a bad word in public or typically in private about Sarah Palin. Joe Biden had the same attitude. He knew when he picked Kamala Harris that the notion that she was, quote unquote, the most qualified person in the country to be the vice president, to be a heartbeat away, he knew that wasn't true. But because of the politics of the Democratic Party, he chose her. She was very close to his late son, Beau Biden. That gave him some comfort that he could work with her. But from the beginning, they saw deficiencies. And the nature of those deficiencies, I'm not prepared to talk about today based on the terms I've been told about them. But suffice to say that part of why Joe Biden held on, part of why Joe Biden refused to give up the job was because he felt that her ability to run to beat Donald Trump, that her ability, if she did win, to be a successful president, he didn't see it. And he would tell people that. He would tell people if he stepped aside, Kamala would be the nominee. She'd almost certainly lose to Trump, but that if she won, her knowledge of how to do the job, her knowledge of certain subject areas was not sufficient for her to be president. Now, his judgment may have been wrong, but there were plenty of people in the West Wing who felt the same way about both her capacity to win and govern. And that's played a big role in the history of this. Now, you could say it was just a justification that Joe Biden used that to argue that he should keep the job. But there were people around him who felt the same way. And if you look at someday, somebody's going to write a great book about how she operated as vice president, and you will find people, including people on her own staff, and remember there was a lot of staff turnover there, who said she's not up to this. She has trouble dealing with staff when their pressure is on. Okay. And now she's got people around her giving her advice. She's doing lots of consultations. The bottom line is it's hard to argue that she's used this time productively. Many people who lose the White House move on, right? They say, I'm never going to run again. They know they need to go away, that the party and the public maybe doesn't want to see them. But the reality is that she has the tools. She's got the power. She's got the sway within the party. She could have used these last many weeks to build something real. And she's talking about building some sort of nonprofit. Everybody needs a break after a punishing and heartbreaking loss. She still, no doubt, has some time to figure this out. But the first thing she's going to have to deal with is the book tour next month. What's that going to be like? What kind of interviews will she do? Will she do tough interviews? Will she go on media where people will ask her tough questions? Welcome her on this show. How will the book frame things? Will she talk about Joe Biden in a way different than she did during the campaign? Will she talk about why she thinks she lost? Some of the issues that she didn't address, some that she did. Fascinating for people in politics and media to think about. It's all going to play out. And then after the book tour, however that goes, the question's going to be, what's the next chapter? What's the next chapter of her political life? Calling the system broken, for many, it's just a cop-out. It's an excuse. Because what happened in 2024 is what typically happens in America every 4 years. Democracy worked. The people voted. A president was chosen on election day, took the oath of office. It's not the outcome she wanted. But it's hard to argue that the system is unhealthy. It's hard to argue that things didn't operate the way they did because Donald Trump won the election and took the oath of office. There are no doubt aspects of the system that lots of people would say are broken. But to say the system's so fundamentally broken that she doesn't, for now at least, want on any part of it, if she wants to see change in America, if she wants to see a change in the Oval Office, what the Democrats I've talked to about her, including some who like her a great deal, what they say is she's going to have to do the work. She's going to have to put in the time if she wants to be part of this conversation, if she wants to, in fact, change America. It takes more than 107 days. Think about this. What if you could delay your next 2 mortgage payments? That's right. Imagine putting those 2 payments in your pocket and finally getting a little breathing room. It's possible when you call the good folks at American Financing today. If you're feeling stretched by those everyday expenses, the cost of groceries or gas, the bills piling up, you are not alone. Most Americans are putting these expenses on credit cards, and there does not seem to be any way out once you start that. American Financing, though, can show you how to use your home's equity to pay off your debt. You need to call American Financing today before you get to the point where you can't make those payments. Their salary-based mortgage consultants are helping homeowners just like you restructure their loans and consolidate debt, all without any upfront fees. And their customers are saving an average, get this, of $800 a month. That's like a $10,000 a year raise. It's fast, it's simple, and it could save your budget this summer. So call now before it's too late, 866-886-2026. Again, that's 866-886-2026, or you can visit americanfinancing.net/next.